Good morning, friends, to our episode of Wake Up Well, and today we are continuing with our theme, looking at what it looks like to slow down, and particularly we're going to be looking at the book of Exodus, chapter 33. Throughout the book of Exodus, for those that perhaps don't know the story, we're looking at the life of this man called Moses. And Moses was a man that happened to find himself in conversation with God, stood at the side of a bush that was just perpetually burning, but not seeming to burn up. And in this conversation, the Lord tells him that he is to be the figurehead to rescue the Israelites. Those are God's people, God's chosen people, from Egypt, where they're being held captive by Pharaoh. And the story is just incredible, and I would encourage you to go read the whole thing. But we find ourselves in this situation with Moses where he has this incredible relationship with the Lord that is fostered over many years of intimacy and meeting. The Israelites are very blessed to have Moses as a leader, because as we read through the book, very often they find themselves grumbling or frustrated because whilst they were in slavery, they perhaps had access to things that they wanted, but here they are roaming through the wilderness, having been rescued by Moses, perhaps not having some of their comforts. And so often they find themselves falling into sin, and as was common at the time with priests, the priest would come before the Father seeking atonement on behalf of the kind of the corporate body, the Israelites here, and we find actually that Moses had to do this quite regularly, not more so than we find in chapter 17 when the Lord calls Moses to come up into the mountain with him to actually meet with God, and Moses leaves with Joshua, this man Joshua, who turns out to have been a slave in Egypt, or born into slavery, and then is rescued from slavery by Moses, and finds himself eventually as Moses' aide, and then his disciple. And together with some elders, they go up into the mountain, and eventually the Lord calls Moses and Joshua, to go up into this holy place, and the cloud of the Lord descends upon them, and they meet with the Lord there. And we know that was for 40 days and nights. I mean, that's a long time. And the Lord actually really kind of downloads a lot of information to them, and they leave this time after 40 days and nights with these tablets, and on it are carved the Ten Commandments. But as well as that, there's an awful lot of instruction given to Moses, and one of those instructions is to build this thing called the tabernacle. And the tabernacle was to host the presence of God, in so much as it was to be the house for something called the Ark of the Covenant. And while Moses was up on the mountain, he comes down to find that the Israelites have again fallen into sin, and he finds himself having to atone once again, or seek atonement once again for the Israelites. But we look at the life of Moses, and we seek that here he is asked by the Lord to build this formal meeting place, and that was important. It was certainly symbolic for the Israelites as a whole, and that was great. But for Moses, he actually preferred to meet with the Lord in a much more intimate way. And for him, he had this thing called the tent of meeting. And whenever the Israelites would make camp, Moses would actually have a single tent erected outside the camp, where he would steal away to take time with the Lord, to meet with him. And it's usually in this place we would find him on his knees before the Lord, seeking atonement for the Israelites, and actually seeking the Lord for what the next step was going to be, because as we know, the Lord led them into the wilderness and was leading them towards the promised land, but it was a journey they were going to have to go on, and Moses was seeking the Lord's instruction as they walked this journey. And so we know that it was in this place that his relationship with God was fostered. And there's a passage in Hebrews chapter 11, and I believe that the Moses' relationship with the Lord was fostered in the way that the writer of the book of Hebrews in chapter 11 says that the Lord is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. And we see that in the life of Moses, that he was someone that regularly stole away to have time with the Lord, away from the crowd, away from the masses, where it was just he and the Father. And we know that the Lord actually would speak to him. It says actually in Exodus 33, I think verse 11, it says that the Lord and Moses would meet face to face. Now, we don't necessarily think that that was literal. It was probably a figure of speech. It says in, I believe, 1 John that actually that no man has seen that may look upon the face of God. So it was probably more that Moses could hear the Lord like you're hearing me now. It was a conversation, not so much as, well, we heard the Lord, or we heard of the Lord in a vision or a dream. It was kind of speech. And that was just incredible that Moses got to have that relationship with the Father. But more than that, he also had this guy Joshua, who he had brought in, and the Lord often invited Joshua to come along with Moses into these places. And I think that that's just truly incredible, because we are in chapter 33, verse 7 to 11, and the end of verse 11 says the Lord would speak to Moses face to face as one speaks to a friend. Then Moses would return to the camp, but his young aide Joshua, son of Nun, did not leave the tent. And so Moses has discipled this young man and led him into a place of incredible intimacy with the Father. This was a place that no one gets to live in this kind of intimacy with the Father. Yet here, Joshua is regularly invited into this place of intimacy and invited into a relationship with God that no one else would ever have known to be possible. And we know that eventually Joshua goes on to lead the Israelites to occupy the land that the Father had promised them. And I guarantee that that's a task that he would not have been able to accomplish, and the Father would not have led him into, if it had not been for those moments where he stole away and sought the Lord in the private place. And so today this speaks to me on numerous levels, but I think the thing that I want to leave with you is one, where have I created a holy space, a tent of meeting, a place of informal meeting, usually just for me and him. Perhaps I'll invite others into it, but where is that place that just he and I get to hang out, that space that I've carved out? And how often do I frequent that space? And then secondly, the Lord, I think, is asking, who am I discipling? Who am I leading into that holy space? And who is it that I'm showing what a life of intimacy with him can look like?